You know what McDonald's is. The Golden Arches, Big Macs, fries, Happy Meals, a brand so iconic it's basically a global language. But what if I told you the version of McDonald's that Americans know isn't actually the best one? Because halfway across the world, in a country famous for sunburns, sarcasm, and shortening every single word in the English language, McDonald's quietly evolved into something else. Something cooler. Something better. Welcome to Maccas, the Australian remix of McDonald's that's become so local, so deeply woven into Aussie culture, that even some of the signs outside the stores don't say McDonald's anymore. This isn't just a funny nickname or some Aussie quirk anymore. This is a masterclass in branding, adaptation, and survival. While US McDonald's is stuck in a tug-of-war between nostalgia and irrelevance, McDonald's Australia is thriving, innovating, testing ideas so successful that they get exported to the rest of the world. So, how did a massive American chain become one of the most beloved fast food brands in a country famously suspicious of corporate nonsense? Why is Australia one of McDonald's most profitable, forward-thinking markets? And what does this tell us about the wild, complicated relationship Aussies have with fast food in general? Let's break it down. First up, let's talk about the name, Maccas. This wasn't some top-down marketing campaign. There was no boardroom brainstorm where someone said, let's Aussiefy the brand. No, this came straight from the people. Because Aussies shorten everything. Afternoon becomes Arvo, Mosquito, Mozzie, Service Station, Servo, McDonald's, Maccas. And here's the genius part. Instead of trying to protect the brand, McDonald's leaned all the way in. They didn't correct anyone. They didn't roll out some weird hybrid name like, and forgive me for saying this, but McMaccas. They embraced it. In 2013, for Australia Day, 13 locations across the country literally changed their signs to read Maccas. Like official signage, golden arches and all. It was cheeky, viral, and instantly loved. And it told Australians one very powerful thing. We're not just here to sell you burgers, we get you. From a branding perspective, this was gold. Most global companies are obsessed with keeping their identity perfectly intact when they expand. McDonald's Australia flipped the script. We'll become what you call us. That move earned them more than headlines, it earned them trust. But Maccas didn't stop at the name. They did something harder, smarter, and riskier. They localized the product, and not in a superficial box-checking kind of way. In a country where authenticity actually means something, that was the only way to survive. Because here's the thing about fast food in Australia. Copying the American model doesn't cut it. Slap a kangaroo on the logo, toss in a limited time meat pie burger, and people will see right through it. Australians are proud of their food culture, and for good reason. This is a place where you can grab a $12 banh mi from a random hole in the wall, and it'll taste like it came straight out of Ho Chi Minh City. Even your average suburban fish and chip shop is probably slinging house-made aioli and double-fried hand-cut chips. The bar is high, even for cheap eats. So, when McDonald's came to town, they had to play by local rules, and they did. Step into any Aussie Maccas and it hits you right away. The Big Mac is still there, of course, but sitting next to it, the McOz, with beetroot, fried egg, and crisp lettuce. An unmistakably Aussie burger profile. The Aussie Angus, with premium beef, caramelized onions, and fancy cheese, something that feels halfway between fast food and a decent pub lunch. These weren't brainstormed in some Chicago boardroom, they were developed in Oz for Aussies. You'll also find clever one-offs that become legends, like the Tim Tam McFlurry, a genius cross-brand collaboration that hit Australian nostalgia and dessert cravings in one go. Even the sides and drinks get the Aussie treatment. You're far more likely to see frozen Coke machines working overtime, loaded with variations like raspberry or vanilla swirl. And yes, that's on top of your standard soda fountain, because customization matters here. And this goes deeper than fun menu items. As the culture shifted toward health and nutrition, Maccas didn't panic or double down on nostalgia. They adapted. The menu evolved. Grilled chicken wraps, salads that didn't feel like punishment, kids' meals that defaulted to bottled water and apple slices. Even the oils they used got reformulated to cut down on trans fats. By the mid-2010s, it wasn't weird to see someone order a chicken Caesar wrap, a fruit bag, and a long black coffee, and not feel like they were cheating on a diet. That's the magic trick Maccas pulled over us back then, turning fast food into a normal, socially acceptable, even health-conscious choice. No shame, no guilt, just another place to eat. Now, contrast that with the US, where McDonald's experiments with healthy options is like someone trying out yoga in January. Half-hearted, temporary, and gone the second it stops trending. Remember the McWrap, the kale salad, the grilled chicken snack wraps, all vanished without a trace. It's a pattern. Every few years they launch a health initiative, and when it doesn't blow up overnight, they quietly shelve it. Australia doesn't work like that. When Maccas sees a shift in customer behavior, they don't throw a campaign at it, they rebuild the menu, they normalize the change, and when something clicks, they roll it out. Not as a stunt, but as the new default. And that's what sets them apart. Real localization isn't about offering Vegemite for 2 weeks or posting a cheeky koala meme. It's about embedding yourself in the habits, preferences, and expectations of the people you serve and staying there. Maccas didn't show up saying, "Here's what we're selling." They said, "What are you into?" and then built a business around the answer. That's how you stop being another corpo chain and start becoming part of the culture. When talking about Maccas in Oz, we've got to talk about McCafé. Because if you didn't know, and most people outside of Australia don't, McCafé was born in Melbourne in 1993. In the middle of a city known for tram stops, alleyway art, and arguably the best coffee scene in the Southern Hemisphere. It was a calculated, strategic response to a very real threat, Australia's cafe culture. See, McDonald's was getting absolutely steamrolled by local cafes in the early 90s. This wasn't America, where drip coffee from a polystyrene cup could pass as acceptable. Australians were out here drinking espresso, macchiatos, long blacks, and yes, we literally invented the flat white. The local cafe was where you met up with friends, went on casual dates, caught up with co-workers, or just sat in silence scrolling through the newspaper while sipping something strong and smooth. And importantly, it was independent, family-run, authentic. McDonald's knew that if they kept slinging burnt drip from behind the counter like it was 1986, they'd get left behind. So McDonald's did something bold, something global corporations usually don't do. They didn't fight cafe culture, they joined it. In 1993, the first McCafé opened in the Melbourne suburb of Swanston Street. If you were expecting a side menu or a small kiosk tucked next to the fries station, sorry to disappoint you. This was a legit coffee bar inside a McDonald's with real espresso machines, trained baristas, cakes, pastries, and a visual vibe that felt more brunch date than drive-through pit stop. They weren't trying to be Starbucks light. They were trying to meet Australians where they already were, both culturally and physically. In cities like Melbourne and Sydney, McCafé locations started looking more like boutique cafes. And the coffee was good, genuinely good. High quality beans, proper extraction, and a smooth milk frothing. This wasn't, for a McDonald's, it's okay. It was objectively decent cafe coffee sold in the same building as your nuggets and fries. Parents could grab a cappuccino while their kids hit the playground. Workers could swing by for a long black and a bacon roll without needing to stop at 2 different places. Suddenly, McDonald's was a place for coffee people as well. Customers started showing up just for the coffee. Local cafe goers who once wouldn't be caught dead in a McDonald's were now swinging through for a quick flat white. McCafé revenue exploded. By the late 90s, some locations were generating more income from coffee than from burgers. Yeah, more revenue from coffee than burgers in McDonald's. It didn't take long for the higher-ups to notice. By the early 2000s, McDonald's started exporting the concept globally. What started as an Aussie-specific experiment quickly became an international business unit. McCafés opened across Europe, Asia, and eventually even in the US, although America, true to form, was years late and still kind of missed the vibe. Today, McCafé beverages are sold in over 15,000 restaurants, and there are about 4,000 dedicated McCafé counters worldwide. And it all started because McDonald's Australia knew one thing most global brands forget. If you want to thrive in a new market, you don't impose your culture. You learn theirs. You study it, respect it, and then design around it. That's what makes McCafé such a big deal. It was a format innovation. It gave McDonald's a reason to attract older customers. white-collar professionals, health-conscious cafe regulars, people who might not order a burger at 11 a.m. but would happily pay $4.80 for a latte. It gave Maccas new real estate in people's lives, from cheap fast food for the kids to my regular morning coffee stop. And here's the wildest part. In some Australian suburbs, McCafé outperforms standalone specialty cafes. Not because it's fancier or more premium, but because it's reliable, fast, and good enough, and it's part of your daily routine. Meanwhile, in the US, McDonald's is still figuring out whether they should add oat milk. And this wasn't a one-time thing. McDonald's Australia didn't just localize once and call it a day, it kept evolving. Over time, it quietly became something way more influential, a global test lab for the entire McDonald's empire. And honestly, it's the perfect place for that. Because the Australian fast food market is no joke. It's fiercely competitive. Customers are picky, brutally honest, and incredibly loyal to homegrown brands. They won't stick around out of habit. If your quality slips, they'll drop you in a heartbeat and never look back. So if an idea can survive in Australia, if it can actually win here, there's a good chance it'll work anywhere. And that's exactly what happened with a bunch of innovations that now feel standard. Take self-serve kiosks, for example. Before they became the norm in the US, they were already being tested and refined in Australian stores, giving customers the freedom to customize orders without the pressure of a queue behind them. There's also the Maccas app, which launched early in Australia and took off quickly. Today, it's one of the most downloaded food apps in the country because it's actually rewarding to use. Personalized deals, loyalty points, exclusive menu offers, even mobile-only promotions that make ordering feel like a game. They were also early to the loyalty game, pushing targeted app offers and reward programs. Maccas Australia turned casual visits into habits and habits into loyalty through actual value. And while McDonald's internationally was still generally trying to figure out how to integrate delivery, Australian Maccas was already teaming up with Uber Eats and Menulog, building streamlined systems that thrived. They made it seamless, quick, and reliable, which is exactly what Australians expect. But it's not just about the tech, it's about the mindset. The Aussie Maccas team isn't sitting around waiting for permission from corporate HQ in Chicago. They're leading, they're pushing ideas, testing new formats, experimenting with local campaigns, and doing it with a confidence that says, we know our market better than anyone else. And based on the results, they're right. So what makes Australia different? Why is this the sandbox for McDonald's innovation, while the US version often feels like it's stuck in 2003, serving the same combos with a fresh coat of marketing paint? Part of the answer lies in Australia's unique relationship with fast food, one that's more complex than it looks on the surface. On one hand, yes, Aussies love their takeaway. It's everywhere, from local fish and chip shops to servo pies, burger vans, KFC, Hungry Jacks. It's baked into daily life. Need something quick after work? Fast food. Road trip fuel? Fast food. Late night feed after the pub? You already know. It's part of the rhythm. But Australians don't just want cheap calories and sugar bombs, they want quality even when it's fast. There's an unspoken national standard. Food has to be fresh, decent, and ideally, local. That expectation has shaped the entire landscape. It's why places like Guzman y Gomez and Grilled have blown up. Yeah, they're chains, but they don't feel corporate. They feel curated, artisanal even. Grilled constantly talks about grass-fed beef and community sourcing. GYG pushes clean labels and no added preservatives. Their whole brand is built on the idea that fast doesn't have to mean lazy. And this sets the baseline that every new brand is judged against. Australians don't give foreign chains a free pass just because they're famous overseas. If your food tastes processed, bland, or inauthentic, people will walk, no second chances. Look at Taco Bell. When it launched in Australia, it arrived with huge hype. It was supposed to be the next big American export success story. But within a few years, store growth stalled, sales slumped, and now Taco Bell's Australian operator is pulling the plug, planning to sell or shut down every store in the country sometime this year. Why? Because Australians looked at the menu, processed cheese, mystery beef, frozen tortillas, and said, we already have better Mexican food, why would we eat this? And they weren't wrong. Between GYG, Mad Mex, and independent taquerias, Australians already had fresh, flavorful options that felt far more legitimate. Taco Bell felt like a knockoff of a category people already loved. Same story with Wendy's, it's never cracked the market. Carl's Jr. has been hanging on, opening stores here and there, but it's never found real traction. There's no loyal customer base, no cultural relevance. They keep pushing American-optimized meals into a market that wants quality over quantity. Even Domino's, which has done incredibly well in Australia, only succeeded because it fully Australianized itself. Massive tech investments, aggressive delivery guarantees, custom product lines, they rebuilt their entire business model to work for Australian preferences. If they hadn't, they probably wouldn't be here. So when Maccas wins in this environment, it's not because they're riding on their global reputation, it's because they actually understood the assignment. They adapted to this higher standard, localized every part of the brand, from the coffee to the tech to the tone, and then layered on something extra, emotional value. Because once the food meets expectations, what makes people stay is how a brand makes them feel. And Maccas has spent decades embedding itself into daily life here, not as a flashy American chain, but as something comfortably, recognizably Aussie. And that's the last piece of the puzzle, emotional connection. It's not just that Maccas is convenient or tasty, it's that it's there. It's where you go after footy practice, on a road trip, after a night out. It's in the ads, the slang, the stories. Campaigns like "We all have a Maccas moment" pitch nostalgia, identity, and memory. It's not "come try the new chicken supreme combo for $8.99. It's "remember the time you cried in the drive-thru at 2 a.m. after your first breakup? We were there." You can't fake that, and you can't copy-paste it. It's the result of decades of consistent presence, clever marketing, and cultural fluency. Meanwhile, back in the US, McDonald's is struggling to find its footing. Gen Z is drifting toward healthier or more ethical brands, millennials remember the pink slime era, and boomers still love the classics, but the brand is stuck between trying to please everyone and satisfying no one. Today, McDonald's Australia is one of the company's top performing regions per store. Not because Australians eat more fast food than Americans, in fact they don't, it's because retention is better, satisfaction is higher, margins are healthier, and loyalty is deeper. That's what every fast food giant wants, and most can't figure out how to get. So what's the big takeaway here? You can't succeed globally if you treat every market the same. Australia showed that if you really listen to the local culture and respect it, you can build something bigger than a franchise. You can build something that people invite into their lives. And look, Maccas isn't perfect. It's still a fast food chain, still got its critics, still sells plenty of sugary, greasy, calorie bomb sort of stuff. But as a business case, as a blueprint for how to go global and stay relevant, Maccas is best in class. But what do you think? Could this model work in the US, or is Maccas something that only works because of Australia's weird and wonderful food culture? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below and let's discuss. If you like this breakdown, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next deep dive. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, stay curious.